So John, you've got a really interesting story, and I'm glad we could get you in front of the camera because I think that a lot of people have either been through what you've been through or maybe about to go through what you went through, and I think this is a really good lesson to share. And sometimes the best stories are the ones where we've made mistakes. And just to sort of set the stage for this, John's taken my course, or he sent his people to take my course, and they've been SEOing their website, and they were chugging along great. Everything was going really well. And of course, they're taking on the process of link building, which is something we always talk about. There's no secret behind that. And essentially what happens is you got to a point where you were busy and you decided you wanted to outsource this link building work, and you found this company in, was it the Ukraine?
It was the Ukraine.
Okay, so you had some Ukrainian link builders on staff for a little while. And the problem behind that, as we now know, is that when you outsource this kind of work, when we're talking about link building, we're talking about creating social profiles and putting content out on the internet that links back to your website. If you outsource this work to a foreign country, and you're a North American business, and all this link building is being done out of country, a lot of the time that'll raise some red flags and could get you a penalty from Google and could get you punished. And in your case, this actually happened.
Yes.
And what I'd like you to share with us is what you did about this situation,
Yep.
and what other people can do in this situation, and what you've seen happen since.
Yeah. We're in the insurance business. We've got our own insurance agency, and we wanted and are obtaining and do have a good website presence. And like Brad said, we took his course and added to what we were doing. And this past November, on a couple of our key search terms, and we were going for some holy grails in our business, we were on page 1, and we had slipped into position number 7 or 8 on one term, and we were in position number 11 or 12. We bounced into 9 or 10 on another term, and we were tickled pink because our website had only been up at that point just over 12 months. We had worked hard. Brad's recommendations had worked. So in our wisdom, we thought in December, when we were going to go through this, we'd source out some extra work just to give us a little bit of a boost on our couple of other terms to page 1, and take our page 1 term that we had worked so hard for, and we thought we'd move it up the page, because we know up the page adds to activity, just like Brad teaches. Well, we did that, and we contracted out a firm. They were doing some press release for us. They were doing backlinks, all the standard things that we were doing, and we thought that they were just doing it more, and they were. But all of a sudden, within about 3 weeks of hiring that firm, all of a sudden, I woke up one morning and did a search to see how far up page 1 we were, or page 2, and we were gone. We disappeared into thin air. Our 4 or 5 actually search terms, our main 3 that we were doing, they completely disappeared. So we checked back. The short story is this: we found out, or came to the conclusion, that we had been sandboxed. And for people that don't know about that, you don't want to find out about that, but basically you've been penalized for doing something wrong, even if you didn't know you did something wrong. Even if you heard or tried it, or somebody else, we got caught. They didn't like what we did. So we started back from scratch and started working at it, and we kept researching this reconsideration request by Google. And I'll tell you this, Brad, for anybody that is afraid about Google or afraid about reconsideration, you know something, that pays to come clean.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you that today, because of the hard work we've done with what Brad has shown us and the basic legwork, we sent in for reconsideration on the 1st of May, and we basically said to Google, just like they say with reconsideration, tell us what you think you did wrong, tell us why you think you did it wrong, tell us that you won't do it again if you did it wrong, but make sure you read the Google rules, because Google's very fair. They're kind of like the coach that benched the hockey player. You've been benched, but you're not sure why. Well, maybe it's because you said something to his daughter, or maybe it's because you did a dirty shot. You're not sure what you did, but you're pretty sure. Well, you better come clean with the coach, and if you do, the coach will probably let you play again.
Sure.
And we've now found that on our one main search term, we're back on page 1. In fact, we're up to position 4. But we took a 4 or 5 month penalty.
Yep.
And do we know that the reconsideration process worked? everything works. You've got to do it. When we sent in for reconsideration, within 2 days, Google sent us an acknowledgement that they had received the consideration, that it would be reviewed by a real person, and within, I'm going to say, 10 to 14 days, we had an answer back that we were reconsidered. They did the appropriate thing. Thank you for doing it. And that's all they said. They didn't tell us that we were honest or weren't, but within a couple weeks of all of our digit work, we were back.
So there's a couple things here to wrap up. There's a couple lessons here. The first one is that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of companies trying to take your money that say that they're in the business of SEO, or they say that they're in the business of of doing the link building, or doing some of the work that you need to do to rank your own website.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that you should take them all at face value. And when in doubt, you should be asking a real professional. You should be asking someone who knows what they're doing before you take that step. Because I know, had you called me and said, Brad, should I hire these guys in the Ukraine, I would have said run. But that's a mistake that sometimes people have to make. And the other lesson is that if you're in that position, Google has these tools in place for you to use. There isn't, don't be afraid to talk to them. If they're punishing you, you might as well go and ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, I think I'm like everybody else. We were worried about showing our hand, admitting we might have done something wrong. But I think if you go back to the original Google founders, that they're an open, we're just human beings doing our jobs. We can make mistakes, and we did. And I'll tell you, everybody that wants to listen from our experience, is you might think you're going to get a little bit of a boost for $500 or $1,000 or these $200, $300 artists that are going to give you this boost. It's not the money that it cost us, because we wasted our money on that, but we lost 5 months.
5 months of good business and revenue and
5
climbing.
months of growth.
Yeah, 5 months of
we
climbing.
lost 5 months. So in 2 years' time, whatever our income is in 2 years' time, we're getting it 5 months later.
Yeah.
So it's not the money we lost this year, or the business this year. It's the next years. We're always going to be 5 or 6 months behind in what we should have had, and it's expensive, folks.
And just to close, you mentioned about not wanting to show Google your hand, and I've heard a lot of people say that they're afraid to tell Google what they're doing. Google knows.
Oh, they know anyway.
You've got a poker hand in your hand, and Google's the camera above you in the casino, watching what's in your. They know what your hand is, and they know what everybody else's hand is, way more than you do. And they know what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. So to come clean, you're not showing them anything they don't already know, especially if you've been punished.
And let's be honest, you probably know what you're doing wrong, because we thought we'd do it for a boost, for help, and we should have just helped ourselves, and we should have just worked a little harder, or paid for the SEO work that we knew we were going to get, and what those links and what those services were going to be. They weren't promises, and you got to be very, very careful. But don't be afraid to go for reconsideration. We found Google to be just great with how they handled it, and great how we were treated. It was a good experience.
Thanks, John.
Apprehensive, but a good experience.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.